Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, after successfully retrieving the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, the IDF repledges its commitment to rescue all of the 128 hostages which remain in Hamas captivity. The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in The Hague announces his decision to produce arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant tells the IDF to prepare for a Lebanon offensive at any given moment. The IDF, in cooperation with the ISA, recovered the bodies of 4 Israeli civilians from the Gaza Strip over the weekend. According to the IDF spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Agari, the 4 Israelis, including Ron Binyamin, Shani Luk, Amit Buskila, and Yitzhak Gelernter, were brutally murdered on October 7th near Kibbutz Miflasim by murderous terror operatives of the Islamist Hamas, who seized their bodies and took them back into the Gaza Strip.
Tonight we're sharing the tragic news that the Israel Defense Forces, together with the ISA, rescued the body of the Israeli hostage Ron Binyamin and brought him home to Israel. Ron, who was 53 years old, married to Ayelet and father to Shai and Gil, went out for a cycle ride with friends near Be'eri on the morning of Saturday, October 7th. On that terrible day, Ron was brutally murdered by Hamas terrorists and his body was abducted into Gaza. On October 7th, the cruelty of Hamas was directed against anyone who stood in the way of those murderous terrorists, women, the elderly, adults, children, whether they were Israeli or foreign nationals. Yesterday, we announced that our troops had rescued the bodies of 3 other Israeli hostages murdered and abducted on October 7th. Shani Luk, Amit Buskila, Yitzhak Gelernter. Our thoughts are with their families at this very difficult time. Our mission to bring home every single one of the 128 hostages who are still being held in Gaza.
Following the retrieval of the bodies of the 4 Israeli hostages from Hamas captivity, they were respectively laid to rest with their families and loved ones present. Meanwhile, parents of one of the 4, Shani Luk, noted that they found some solace in knowing where their daughter is laid to rest.
I was relieved because we didn't know where she is. In the last 6 months, since we knew that she was murdered by the Hamas militants, we didn't know where she was. Maybe she was somewhere, they threw her into a well, or maybe she's buried somewhere. And yesterday we got all the answers and we closed this loop. And we are happy, that now she will have her own place next to us, and we can go there whenever we want, and she can rest.
We can tell you from our own experience, and we lost our daughter in this massacre that happened here, and nobody should live through this, and no civilian should die in this way. There is no resistance that can justify what happened here.
Turning to The Hague, where the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court made a dramatic announcement this morning in which he laid out his decision to manufacture applications for warrants of arrest before pre-trial against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, alongside warrants for the arrest of 3 arch-terrorists and Hamas leaders, Yahya Sinwar, Hamad Def, and Ismail Haniyeh.
Today I'm filing applications for warrants of arrest before pre-trial Chamber 1 of the International Criminal Court in the situation in the State of Palestine. These applications are the outcome of independent investigations conducted by my office.
After citing all of the heinous crimes which the leaders of Hamas committed during the October 7th massacre and subsequent period, in the same breath, the ICC chief prosecutor blatantly announced a string of preposterous allegations against the Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister.
I can also confirm today that I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder, persecution, and allegations of crimes of committing other inhumane acts. It's alleged that these crimes were committed in the context of the ongoing armed conflict and as part of a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population of Gaza, pursuant to a state policy. Unfortunately, these crimes continue to this day.
It is important to highlight that Israel is not a signatory of the Rome Statute, and therefore, the ICC essentially does not have jurisdiction in Israel. Moreover, the ICC, which did not receive any agreement from Israel to conduct its self-proclaimed independent investigations, fails to live up to its own charter, which explicitly states in Article 4 that the court may exercise its functions and powers as provided in this Rome Statute on the territory of any state party and, by special agreement, on the territory of any other state. Meanwhile, Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid, who is regarded as Netanyahu's most ardent political rival, voiced outrage over the ICC's preposterous decision and pledged to fight it.
זה אסון. זה אסון מדיני, זה אסון ערכי. לא יכול להיות שאומרים שמוציאים צווי מעצר נגד נתניהו, יחיא סינואר, הנייה ומוחמד דף, אחרי שטבחו בנו ובילדינו ב7 באוקטובר. אין השוואה כזאת, אנחנו לא מקבל אותה ולא יכולים לקבל אותה. זה בלתי נסלח. אנחנו ניהלנו ומנהלים מלחמה צודקת, וצריך שיהיה ברור שאנחנו לא נעבור על זה בשתיקה.
Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan arrived in Israel yesterday, after which he held consecutive meetings with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi, War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz, President Yitzhak Herzog, and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, among other senior Israeli officials. Ahead of his visit, NSC Coordinator for Strategic Communications, Rear Admiral John Kirby, laid out Sullivan's agenda.
Mr. Sullivan will travel to Israel to meet with senior Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, to discuss, of course, the war in Gaza, including ongoing negotiations to secure the release of all the hostages, address the humanitarian crisis, and our shared objective for the enduring defeat of Hamas through both military pressure and a political plan.
During the course of Sullivan's meeting with Defense Minister Gallant, Jerusalem's top defense official presented Washington's national security advisor with the IDF's humanitarian plans undertaken in Gaza that complement operational activities on the ground, including significant efforts to evacuate the civilian population in Rafah, facilitating the provision of humanitarian services, and operating in a precise manner to avoid harm to uninvolved civilians. In discussing the complex operational and humanitarian environment in Rafah, Minister Gallant emphasized Israel's moral obligation to dismantle Hamas as a governing and military authority and to ensure the return of hostages held in Gaza. Separately, Sullivan and Gallant also discussed tensions on Israel's northern border, during which the latter echoed remarks which he made to the IDF troops operating along Israel's Lebanese front earlier this weekend that Hezbollah's ongoing aggression and refusal to achieve a diplomatic settlement risks the possibility of a significant escalation. During the course of his tour in northern Israel, Minister Gallant also urged the troops to be ready.
אנחנו נגיע למצב שאנחנו מחזירים את התושבים שלנו בביטחון. אנחנו רוצים למצות כל סיכוי לעשות את זה בהסכמה. כי אנחנו יודעים שלמלחמה יש מחירים, לכולם. ואם אפשר לעשות סיבוב קצר במקום סיבוב ארוך ולחזור להסכמה אחרי מלחמה קשה, אנחנו מעדיפים את זה. ומלחמה תהיה דבר שיהיה לנו מחירים בו. זה יהיה קטסטרופה ללבנון ולחיזבאללה. אבל גם לנו יהיה מחיר ואנחנו מעדיפים להימנע מזה.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Moreover, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based, and as such broadcast free of charge, please consider making a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.